Good morning friends, welcome to the point. In this video we will talk about as to how can we determine the rate of our domestic currency with respect to the foreign currencies and what are the three different regimes to determine the exchange rate of the domestic currency. So starting off with what exchange rate meaning is. So foreign exchange rate is the amount of domestic currency that should be paid to get 1 unit of foreign currency. It is just like purchase of any other commodity from the market by paying a price for it. So for an example, if you go to the market and you want 1 unit of a chips packet, okay, so how much do you have to pay? So you have to pay 10 rupees for that, 10 Indian rupees to buy 1 packet of chips. So what is the value of 1 unit of chips packet? That is 10 rupees. So same concept works in the foreign exchange market. That is, in order to buy 1 unit of dollar or any foreign currency, here we'll talk about dollar. So in order to buy 1 unit of dollar, how much do you have to pay, or what is the price of $1 in the market? That is rupees 70 for an example. So that forms the exchange rate for the Indian currency with respect to dollar. So we can say $1 is equal to 70 Indian rupees. So it is just like buying any other commodity in the market. The way you go to the market and buy commodities like chips packet or a sugar or 1 kg of rice. So how much or whatever amount you pay for buying 1 kg or 1 unit of it is the price for it. Similarly, it is the same in case of foreign exchange market. Whatsoever you pay to buy 1 unit of the foreign currency is its exchange rate. So I hope you must have got what the exchange rate meaning is. Moving on to the next slide, which talks about the ways in which the exchange rate is determined of the foreign currency. So basically there are 3 different mechanisms to determine the exchange rate of the Indian currency or the domestic currency with respect to the foreign currency. They are fixed exchange rate system, the flexible one, and the third one is a blend of both, that is managed floating rate system. We'll start with understanding what flexible exchange rate is. So as the name suggests, flexible, which means there is flexibility in determining the exchange rate. And flexibility with regards to what? There is no central government or central bank intervention in determining the exchange rate. It is left to the free market forces of demand and supply. So in this type of market, the exchange rate is determined by the market forces of demand and supply, and there is no intervention by the central bank to regulate or control it. Since it is left to the market forces, it fluctuates every moment. So in this market, I will explain how the rate is determined. For an example, there are 10 injections available with the stockist in the market, whereas there are 20 buyers in the market who wants to buy this injection. So since the supply is limited, supply is less than the demand, right? 10 injections, whereas demand is more, right? Because there are 20 buyers. So every buyer will try to put in its effort to fetch the injection because there is limited supply of the injection. And we are assuming here that the MRP of injection is rupees 100. So if a buyer goes to the stockist and say, I will give you 105 rupees for the same injection, but please give me this injection. At the same time, B buyer number B goes to the stockist and say, don't sell it for 105, I will give you 107 rupees for the same injection, and please give me this injection. Now why this situation is arising? Because the injections are limited in the market, whereas more number of people wants this, which means that supply is limited and demand is more. Now the buyer number C or the C buyer goes to the stockist and say, you give me this injection for, I will give you 108 rupees for 1 injection, and you give me this injection. So if you see, what is happening in the market is that the price of the injection is increasing gradually. Originally it is priced for 100. Since the supply is limited in the market and more number of people are demanding it, so the price is constantly or gradually increasing from 105 to 107 and 108. So Same concept works in foreign exchange market. When the supply is limited and demand is more of the foreign currency, definitely the value appreciates. And the opposite of this is, let's suppose if there are 10 buyers and there is 20 injections available, which means that demand is less and supply is more, because if you see 20 injections whereas the demand is just for 10. So in this case, what this stockist will do, will offer more discounts to the buyer, because he knows that only 10 people are there in the market who needs this injection. So he will try to sell these injections by offering discounts to these 10 buyers. So originally the price was for ₹100, but the stockist will give a discount, let's suppose for ₹2, and will try to persuade them to buy it for 98. Let's suppose if no buyer is coming for 98 also, the stockist will provide even more discount, like let's suppose 97, and we'll see if somebody comes to buy the injection or not. So if you see, the value falls in case when there is more supply and demand is less, so which means the value depreciates. So this is what happens in the flexible exchange rate system. Everything is determined by the market forces of demand and supply, and I have explained you how the market forces works. So in case when there is demand, the demand is more and supply is less, the value appreciates, and when there is more supply and less demand, the value depreciates. The advantage of this system is that it helps in determining the true value of domestic currency. And why it determines the true value? Because it is completely dependent on the market sentiments of demand and supply, and there is no intervention by the central bank to regulate or manage it. One of the disadvantages of this system is that since it is dependent upon the market forces, it fluctuates throughout the day. So a moment back you will realize that $1 is equal to 70 rupees. A moment after that, or maybe 5 minutes later, you will realize that the dollar has become more expensive, and now in order to buy $1 you have to spend 72. Or even after 10 minutes you will realize that dollar has become more expensive, and now to buy 1 unit of dollar you have to spend 72.5 rupees. So in this system there is no intervention, and the market keeps on fluctuating totally because it is dependent upon demand and supply. Moving on to the next system, which is fixed rate of exchange. As the name suggests, everything is fixed, and it is fixed by whom? It is fixed by the central bank of the country. The central bank will decide what is the rate of exchange of dollar to the domestic currency. So for an example, if the central bank decides that $1 is equal to 72 rupees, 1 euro stands for 80 rupees, 1 pound is 100 rupees. So everything is decided by the central bank of the country, and there is no market demand and forces that plays an active role in determining the exchange rate. The advantage of this system is that the exchange rate remains stable, and it prevents sudden appreciation or depreciation that used to take place in the flexible rate of exchange. So it ensures stability, to say. The next system is a blend of both the systems, that is the fixed exchange rate system and the flexible exchange rate system. The managed floating exchange rate lies in between both the extremes, that is the fixed and the floating exchange rate. Under such a system, the exchange is allowed to move freely and determined by the forces of market, that is demand and supply, but to an extent. So we take the advantages of both the system. The advantage of flexible system was that it was dependent upon the market forces of demand and supply. So in the managed floating system also, the exchange rate is determined by the market forces of demand and supply, but with a condition that if it crosses a certain threshold which is determined by the central bank will intervene and will regulate or stabilize the market. So for an example, if we assume that $1 is equal to 70 and the central bank has set a certain threshold that if $1 crosses a limit of ₹75 on the higher side, and on the lower side, if it crosses $1 is equal to 65 rupees, then the RBI or the central bank will intervene and stabilize it. So the threshold has been set. The lower limit that the dollar should not fall or below 65. On the higher side, it should not cross rupees 75. So if the threshold is crossed, the central bank will intervene and will try to stabilize the exchange rate and bring it back to the normal. The advantage of this system is that the government or the central bank can intervene if there is high fluctuation to protect the interest of the market players. So these are the three systems through which exchange rate system or exchange rate is determined in the foreign currency market, which we have studied completely in detail. So friends, this is all for the today's video. You just have to understand and I don't think so there's much technical things which were involved in the current concept which we have discussed today. So friends, this is all for the today's video. Stay fit, stay at home. Thank you.